Oh, I did not see you there. I was too busy playing Peak. Y'all should join me. This is the highest rated LEGO game for a reason, and it really got me in my DC bag. So today, since you barged in so aggressively like a LEGO Batman goon, I mean henchman, we gotta reclaim that word because that was my childhood and a lot of yours as well, and it's been retroactively ruined over time ever since. But Legacy of the Dark Knight has gotten many of us thinking because, you know, we're mad starving and at the same time gluttonous for content. I know that doesn't make any sense, that we have started brainstorming ideas on which hero could have a game similar to the new format of LEGO games, and obviously, the first pick would be Spider-Man. He has enough mainstream media and adaptations to warrant such a game. I don't know if it would be more difficult of a development process because, let's be honest, no other character has as many great supporting cast members who are integral to the wider story arc and people would like to play as them as the Batman franchise. I did, however, see many people ask for DC games created in the same vein, but for other characters. One name that I saw pop up a lot, as you might expect, was Superman, with many using the logic that it would be far easier to create a Superman game within a LEGO format than it would be to create a game with the realism and realistic tone and graphics of the Arkham games or even the Insomniac Spider-Man games, and I wholeheartedly agree. However, as with many things, even within the LEGO games fanbase, which, come on, it's never that serious, there has been some heated arguments over which character actually deserves it, both Marvel and DC alike. And the downplay that I've been seeing for some of my favorite characters have actually got me kind of tight. So today, I want to highlight some characters that I think are integral to the DC brand through the lens of a Mount Rushmore. We all know the big three of DC, like come on, they make it abundantly clear with the concept of the Trinity itself, way easier than it was for Marvel because everyone has different takes, different eras. The Trinity, the big three, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, those are the three faces of the DC universe, representing the street level, more pulpy side of comics, as well as, you know, the brand itself. I mean, Detective Comics, it's in the name. Female superheroes, and well, superheroes as a whole. I mean, Supes is the grandfather of the whole thing. But this does beg the question, who's the fourth? Hey everyone, post-production Natrix here, just stopping by to remind you that if you enjoy the content, to like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. It is free, and it really helps the channel out a ton. We're on our way to 50k subs, we're almost there. Anyways, let's get back to the video. Come one, come all, presenting to you the magical Zatanna! She can be up here, right? Nah, I'm kind of pushing it. Someone tell me to sit down. But I'd be damned if I didn't mention the literal face of DC magic. Yes, I love Dr. Fate. But in the current era, he's been carried by adaptations. His solo comic, the last one that he got, literally dropped a decade ago. And his only crumbs are coming from Justice League Dark, which, hey, I mean, I will admit those are some pretty good crumbs, but Zatanna has been making a name for herself. Putting aside my personal bias, I can confidently say that she's a character that a lot of people want to see win. They want her to succeed. And in the realm of modern comics and not being one of the main big characters that you see in adaptations, it's very impressive. For the past 3 years, or 4 years actually, everyone who's even had a vague interest in her comics showed up for her books. They would be bestsellers every single month, and I don't know how to describe to you how crazy that is. While it's not too out there for her to be up right now, considering how well DC is doing in the industry, before the All-In initiative in the late stages of Infinite Frontier and Dawn of DC, they weren't exactly doing too hot, but each time Zatanna would release a book, she'd be pulling comparable numbers to the biggest names in comics, and a lot of the times, even better. What really separates her isn't just that she's a magic character though, it's how personal her corner of the magic universe feels. A lot of DC magic can feel ancient or distant, or like you need a textbook before you can even enjoy it. Zatanna flips that. Her magic is theatrical, emotional, sometimes messy, but in a way that feels human. You're seeing someone perform, someone who has to carry a legacy. She's not even the first one in her lineage, even on panel, to be a superhero, a magic user. We have to remember, one of the first heroes, and part of my knowledge, because this character might be the first DC superhero mainstream that is, but Giovanni Zatanna was her father and was somebody who was very much respected in the magic community. She has a level of expectation and pressure every single time she steps onto the stage or into a fight. There's a vulnerability there that you don't usually get with characters operating on that level of power. She's somebody who is trying to hold that world together while the world is literally bending around them. So her enemies are as powerful as she is, and as important, I believe, as she is, considering their magnitude of power. But that in and of itself makes her easier to root for, because look at what she's doing. She's protecting some of your favorite characters and you don't even know it. But more importantly, it makes her easier to invest in the long term. She also benefits from being one of the few characters who can elevate naturally the tone of whatever story she's in. You drop her into something grounded and suddenly there's a sense of wonder creeping in, like she's a god amongst men and women. You throw her into something chaotic and magical, and she becomes the anchor that makes a story readable, or at least relatable, or at least somebody that you could at least latch onto. That balance is rare, and it's a big reason why her presence has felt more and more important over time instead of less. But even with all of that, I am sorry I can't put her as the fourth pillar, and it's not to knock on her. It's more about what that spot actually demands, at least to me. If we're being honest, a pillar has to define a side if they're going to do that in a way that even casual fans recognize instantly. And for poor Zatanna here, it's a motion party you cannot get in. Let me stop. Anyways, Zatanna is not more popular in the public eye than Dr. Fate, so she isn't even somebody who I could say everybody will agree is the number one. And that distinction for this specific conversation matters. At least though, in terms of her relationships with the other three pillars, not like this is a strict requirement, but it does definitely help her case if you want to go this route. She actually has a pretty strong resume here. She's close with Wonder Woman through their time working together on the Justice League Dark, and that partnership really highlights how well magic and mythology can blend when DC leans into it. She's also been a consistent presence across multiple variations of the Justice League, which of course naturally ties her to Superman and Batman. But those relationships also have their own flavors too. With Superman, there's always been, or at least recently, a subtle bit of tension, since magic is one of the few things that genuinely puts Superman on the back foot and he actively hates it. Of course, with it being her everything, she doesn't even have a code name. Magic is her life. It leads to very interesting arguments and discussions and contrasts between absolute power, Superman, and something he can't fully control. And with Bruce, well, that history runs very deep. Childhood connection, mutual respect, a little bit of what could have been energy depending on the writer, Paul Dini. And yeah, I'm not saying that this is endgame, it's not better than every other option out there probably, but I'm not saying it's a bad thing either. In fact, unpopular take opinion coming right up. I have to say, I don't care about shipping, but ever since I read Paul Dini's run in Tynion's Detective Comics and other previous things, I can't help but want Bruce and Zatanna to be together. It is a lot better than a lot of her other complicated relationships. And speaking of complicated relationships, yeah, we might as well talk about John Constantine. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, John Constantine? Yeah, he's a great character, but in what world could he possibly manage to be a part of the core four? Well, to that I say, do you remember the type of motion he had in the post-crisis era? This is a genuine question because a lot of people seem to forget that he was the face of DC's Vertigo line of comics. While Swamp Thing might have been the catapult that launched this entire thought project into existence, and yeah, we could probably argue him in his place up here too, and Dream of the Endless, and of course, Sandman might have been its beating heart, but the Hellblazer series that ran from 1988 to 2013 was the backbone of the entire line. It's really crazy when you think about it because I can't recall a single character who technically isn't a part of mainstream DC to get 300 plus consecutive issues of a run without a relaunch that follows one consistent quality story. We need to put John's name up in the rafters because the quality of stories he had for years in this era is up there with some of the greats, and unfortunately, it gets unnoticed. Even when the book got cancelled thanks to the ever-loving blade constructed by the dastardly New 52, it relaunched almost immediately, and surprisingly, even to this day, kinda, he isn't just a character who goes out of print regularly, as there's always a constant series or mini-series or some team that he's a part of. I don't know any other character that DC puts this much faith and trust in who isn't a member of the Justice League. And what makes Constantine, or Constantine, I remembered, Constantine is a proper way to say it, I fact-checked, I know. Anyways, bear with all the mess-ups I did previously, but his longevity comes from the tone that he brings. He's one of the only characters in DC who feels like he walked in from an entirely different genre, maybe even from this world, and just decided to stay. Everyone else is saving the world. Constantine is trying to survive the consequences of the last deal he made. He's not the most powerful guy in the room, he shouldn't be. He's usually the smartest, or at least the most desperate, and that desperation is kind of his superpower. He wins by cheating, by lying, by outlasting people who are objectively stronger than him. He's a con man. And sometimes he does it just by being willing to pay a price that no one else would even consider. There's a grime to his stories that doesn't get polished away, and that's what made Hellblazer stand out for so long. It was about the consequences of Constantine's life and decisions. You don't read a Constantine story expecting a clean win. You read it to see how bad it gets before he claws his way out of that desperate situation. That identity is so strong that even when he crosses out into the more traditional DC spaces when done well, he still feels like a guest character who didn't quite reserve that RSVP. Like, he's like one of those Mortal Kombat 11 or any just NetherRealm game and all those characters from different franchises. Even think of it like, for me personally, I think about it like Dead by Daylight and all of those characters. Did you see recently that there was going to be a Jason killer? Thank God, because ever since Friday the 13th that game shut down, we were lacking something, and hopefully he comes in with some sauce. But anyways, this is the same reason that I feel like the argument for him to be that pillar starts to fall apart. As important as he is, he stays in his own lane by design. His influence, of course, is massive, but it's concentrated. He defines a very specific niche corner of DC rather than shaping an entire landscape and being the head of it. Outside of things like Justice League Dark, he doesn't naturally weave himself into the broader fabric of the universe the same way a pillar has to. You can have a fully functioning DC universe without him, and it will still feel the same, and that cannot be said with any of the Trinity, so that gap that we see right there matters, at least to me. Even when you compare him with somebody like Swamp Thing, who also operates in a very secluded space, there's a wider ripple effect to what Swamp Thing represents: the green, the balance of nature, the metaphysical structure of life itself. Those ideas touch everything, whether characters realize it or not. Constantine is a lot more contained and a lot more personal. His stories are about people making bad decisions and living with them. The universe is not recalibrating to anything that he does. The difference in scale might be seen as subtle, but Swamp Thing himself always had more connections, more vines connected within the green. So while Constantine absolutely deserves his flowers and honestly probably a little bit more respect than he has, he doesn't quite fit what I'm looking for in that fourth spot. He's essential, but not in a way where the universe is held together by his mere existence. He's the guy you call when things go wrong, not the one you build a house around. So a little bit of an intermission. So far, we've been on a journey trying to find out which character could possibly be that fourth pillar, and we were looking in very unexpected places, people or characters that should be given more attention, but probably wouldn't be in that fourth spot. Maybe we should go a bit more recognizable, because this discussion is more about pattern recognition and not exactly clean categories. You look across DC's biggest moments, across different eras, different writers, different timelines that don't even agree with each other, and one idea will keep flashing at the center of it all. Not a single character in the traditional sense, but a legacy that keeps getting picked up, rewritten, and pushed to its absolute limits. The Flash. And once you start breaking down what that actually means, it becomes pretty hard to ignore how often that mantle ends up in the middle of everything that defines DC. Let's examine our big three for a little bit. Batman is Bruce Wayne, Superman is Clark Kent, Wonder Woman is Diana Prince. The Flash, though, that is a legacy. That's Jay Garrick passing it to Barry Allen, Barry turning into the lightning bolt that inspires Wally West, and Wally taking that and running it further than anyone thought possible. And then you've got Bart Allen stepping in and proving that the symbol doesn't stop ever. It should be constant, it should be mobile just like the character himself, and evolve over time. Every Flash, no matter if you like them or not, adds something to that character. Jay gives it its foundation, Barry gives it a more science fiction feel, Wally gives it heart and pushes the limits of its mythology, Bart represents the future, trying to live up to every single era all at once in a very short amount of time. That constant passing of the torch isn't a side detail, it is the point of the character, and that idea of legacy, that's DC at its core. Sidekicks becoming heroes, mantles being inherited, generations building on top of each other. The Flash doesn't just participate in that concept, I believe he's one of the few heroes that defines it completely. When people talk about DC feeling like a living, breathing timeline instead of a static universe, they're usually talking about the Flash family, whether they realize it or not. Then you get into the Speed Force, and this is where things go from important to borderline very much essential. The Speed Force isn't just a power source, it's a backbone, unfortunately and fortunately, for how DC handles time, space, and the multiverse. Time travel, that is Flash's territory. Alternate timelines, that came from the Flash. Multiversal bleed-throughs, somehow, someway, the Flash is either causing it, fixing it, or suffering because of it. It's one of those concepts that quietly holds everything together, while also being the thing that can break everything if the wrong or right writer wants to push it in that direction. And speaking of things going wrong and kinda right, depending on how dramatic you want your stories, look at DC's biggest events and try not to see the pattern. Crisis on Infinite Earths doesn't work without Barry Allen and his sacrifice, a moment that literally cements him as one of the most important heroes in the universe and opens the door for Wally to step up. Infinite Crisis gives us Bart Allen taking the mantle, and for a moment, being the one guy who has Superboy Prime genuinely panicking for his life. In Final Crisis, Barry comes back, Wally's right there with him, and both of them play key roles in stopping Darkseid. And then you have Flashpoint, which, love it or hate it, reshapes the entire DC timeline and leads directly into the New 52. And when things needed to be emotionally grounded again, DC Rebirth puts Wally West at the center as the heart of the entire universe, trying to remind everyone what was lost. Whether it's Barry making a decision that rewrites reality, or Wally going through one of the most brutal breakdowns we've ever seen in years, those moments don't just affect the Flash family, they ripple outwards to every other family there is. It's almost a running theme at this point. If something massive is happening in DC, check where the Flash is, because odds are he's either the cause, the solution, or both. So yeah, outside of comics, the impact is also just as loud too. The Flash brought an entire generation of fans together. The TV show on the CW, I'm talking about real cultural presence. Star Labs hoodies and t-shirts were everywhere. I saw lightning bolt logos attached to backpacks and people arguing about time travel and how that works, and the way that Barry discussed the multiverse on his little whiteboard that made everyone just so enamored with the DC universe in ways that I didn't see on such a mainstream level. Even my parents, all of us, sat every, I'm pretty sure it was Wednesday, it was Sunday during the week when a new episode of The Flash would air. So stack all of this together, the fact that he's carrying the brand into the real world, the legacy, the mythology, the consistency, and many major comic books within his own runs and different events in terms of what he does, the cultural impact, it becomes really hard for me to argue against the Flash being the fourth pillar. He is the connective piece. He is street level, he is cosmic, he deals with magical stuff, multiversal stuff. It all runs through him at some point or another. Now, is this the obvious pick? Yeah, I'm not gonna pretend like it isn't, but just like the others, I'm not locking this in completely without at least looking at a couple other names, because there is other characters that fit this case, and we need to talk about them before we move on. But the Flash definitely deserves this spot, and I think he will be sharing it with another character soon. Zooming out a little bit into the ether, we're not on Earth anymore, we're in space, ooh. The Green Lantern Corps, the Green Lanterns, these bad boys, these guys, as a concept, it ends up feeling like one of those things that quietly holds way more weight than people give it credit for at first glance. What I mean by this is that on paper, it's simple enough to explain. Willpower turned into reality through a ring, but the moment you actually sit with that idea, it becomes one of the most flexible and creative power systems in all of comics. The idea that imagination, discipline, and sheer force of will can be shaped into constructs, weapons, entire environments, whatever the user can picture, is the kind of concept that basically every modern fantasy or sci-fi franchise, not every but a lot of them, has borrowed in some form without even realizing it exists. It's one of those rare ideas that feels obvious in hindsight but was genuinely ahead of its time in execution. And what makes it even more interesting is how many different identities exist under the Green Lantern name. It's not a single character identity the way people usually think of heroes. Again, it's kinda legacy, but everybody is working together at the same time. It's a team, really. It's a role that gets passed around and reinterpreted constantly. You've got Hal Jordan, my GOAT, as the archetypal test pilot turned cosmic cop, and then you have John Stewart bringing a more disciplined architect-like precision to the ring, Kyle Rayner becoming a last lantern type figure for a while and redefining what the role could even look like, and then even characters like Guy Gardner, who exists almost to show how messy and human this power can still be. That variety is a part of the appeal. The Green Lantern Corps, it's a whole system that reflects different personalities, cultures, aliens' approaches to the same core idea: willpower under pressure. And for some of the greatest Green Lanterns, that pressure will turn them into a proper diamond. And for a stretch of time, that system wasn't just important, it was driving DC. Mid to late 2000s Green Lantern wasn't sitting in the background of the universe building its world, it was actively shaping everything around it. Stories like Sinestro Corps War didn't just feel like another crossover, they felt like DC expanding its cosmic rules in real time. It had remnants of earlier event energy still echoing through things like the Anti-Monitor and Superboy Prime. Those are proper threads weaved through this story. And then we have the Blackest Night event, which comes in and basically turns the entire emotional and thematic history of DC on its head and into a battlefield. Death, fear, rage, hope. Suddenly, all of it is weaponized and visualized in a way that made the emotional spectrum feel like it has always been a part of the universe's DNA, even though readers themselves would know that they were introduced in these stories. And that's the part that makes Green Lantern become such a gateway concept. The emotional spectrum, the different core, the idea that different emotions literally power different factions, it's baby's first deep lore. This is the best and worst way to explain it because a lot of fans don't even realize how recent some of these core ideas are. There's a surprising amount of people who grew up thinking the Green Lantern mythos has always looked like this, when in reality a lot of what defines modern Green Lantern storytelling really solidified in the mid-2000s. The rings, the fear, yellow connections, the emotional system itself, it all got refined into something way more expansive and interconnected than what came before. At one point, it was operating like it was DC's flagship engine along with Batman. It was just such a good time and so entertaining to read. But this is where the argument I feel starts to shift a little bit, because even with all of that scale, I think Green Lantern still doesn't fully fit with what I would consider the fourth pillar of DC. It's kinda like what I said before with Spider-Man and Daredevil in my Marvel video. Yes, Daredevil represents that core street level value better than Spider-Man, but Spider-Man is on a different tier than Daredevil altogether in terms of popularity. Superman and Green Lantern kind of work in the same way. It pains me to say this, but the weakness isn't within the quality of the stories themselves, because Green Lantern is very consistent. It's the way that DC has pushed this character. Even within the books, recently, I don't remember the last time I really enjoyed a Green Lantern run, and that is unacceptable. We're in a pretty weird predicament. While yes, Green Lantern has shaped DC cosmology, and at its peak is borderline unstoppable, right now it feels like a system operating alongside DC, not the thing everyone else naturally orbits around. With that being said, there's still one more name that has to be brought into this conversation before everything is said and done. Finally, we have the most important second seat in all of superhero fiction. We have Robin. The idea of a legacy through mentorship. What makes Robin so unique isn't just that he exists as a sidekick, is that he basically defines what a sidekick is supposed to be in modern and classic comics. Before him, the idea of a kid partner in superhero stories wasn't unheard of, but Robin turned into a blueprint. He becomes the emotional and narrative bridge between a hero and successor, between experience and growth, and in a weird way, that role ends up being way more important to DC's long-term identity than the Green Lantern Corps, in my opinion, because DC isn't just a universe of heroes, a galaxy of cosmic events, it's a universe of family and inheritance. Characters don't just exist, they evolve, they get replaced, they inspire the next generation and version of themselves. Robin is the system that teaches the universe how to do that, and that's where the concept gets even more important when you start comparing pillars. Because while something like Green Lantern represents that spacefaring mythology, Robin is the reason why legacy heroes feel very natural in DC in the first place. Without him, you don't really get the same pipeline from mentor to successor that defines so much of the universe's emotional weight. What's even more impressive is how many different versions of the idea have worked. Dick Grayson starts it all off as the classic Golden Boy, the original blueprint. Then you get to Jason Todd, who flips the entire concept by showing what happens when that legacy goes a little bit wrong. Very wrong, actually. Then there's Tim Drake, who doesn't even feel like a replacement as much as he feels like a detective-level reinterpretation of what Robin is, along with feeling very Peter Parker coded. And even Damian Wayne brings it full circle by making the role feel like an inherited pressure taken to its extreme. Each one is different, but they all reinforce the same idea. Robin isn't a person, it's a revolving door of identity shaped by Batman and reshaped by whoever steps into it next. Whoever wants to step into the Robin's nest, that is a very difficult job, but usually, every single time from what I've seen, it usually works very well. Every single Robin, even those that are considered to be failed Robins like Jason Todd and Stephanie Brown, all had very interesting dynamics with Bruce and comics that really surprised me when I did my first read-through. There is no truly bad Robin when it comes to narrative. I would also like to bring attention to the fact that Robin isn't just a comic book role, he's basically embedded himself into pop culture at this point. From Batman the Animated Series to Teen Titans 2003, to Young Justice, to the older live-action eras of the Schumacher-era Batman movies, and even the more meme-heavy interpretations in film and games, to the Arkham series, and the LEGO games. What am I missing, bro? Robin has been there in some form for decades. Even the Batman and Robin phrase has escaped comics entirely and become shorthand in everyday language for any iconic duo, whether that's from media to sports to whatever your mind could put it to. That is character success and cultural absorption, what DC looks like from the outside world. Robin clears that bar in a way very few characters ever do. Most people, even non-comic fans, don't need context for who Robin is. He is just known. I can guarantee you, call up your grandma right now. She knows who Robin is. Just make sure you say it like Batman and Robin first, so she knows exactly what you're talking about. But that level of recognition is rare, as I've said before, and it's part of why he's always been so important to the brand. He's even, Dick Grayson that is, he's even on Mark Waid's Mount Rushmore of superhero characters. He's that important, and he's even seen that way from veterans in the industry. I know a lot of people are going to say, dude, Robin is completely adjacent to Batman, and I will say, yes, that is completely true, but there is nothing wrong with it. Some people will say, don't you want somebody else completely different to represent DC? But again, even at his most independent, even when he becomes Nightwing, or Red Hood, or Red Robin, or whatever, he is built into Batman's world by design. The core identity of Robin is still derived from Batman's orbit. That's not a flaw, it is literally the point of the character on this Mount Rushmore. Robin shapes DC's idea of legacy. He's a catalyst and a foundation, a pillar by definition. So I absolutely believe that Robin is one of the most culturally important characters and concepts DC has ever produced, and arguably the strongest representation along with the Flash of legacy in superhero fiction, and well deserving of that fourth spot. So to recap, I will say the Flash and Robin are the only two picks that should be in this race, with me favoring Robin a bit more than Flash because not only does he represent legacy, but also Sidekicks, which is very much connected to DC as a whole. But yeah guys, let me know down below, do you agree with my picks? Do you think that I overlooked a certain character? Who do you think should have been mentioned in this video? Let me know down below. Remember to like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you know when a new video goes live. And yeah, see you all later. Take care. Deuces. Peace.